I was saying, y'all, about Rico from RicoScores, and man, I saw this information somewhere on Twitter, and I was like, man, I gotta talk about it. But of course, me being Rico of RicoScores, we gotta dive even deeper. Because I saw a tweet about how the Commanders have an 81% chance at the top 3 pick, 3, 2, 1, whichever one, we can land within the top 3 in this upcoming 2024 NFL draft if we lose out. So we got to talk about all of the different scenarios and odds, and also I want to break down why going from the 4th pick to the 3rd pick can be a huge difference, a very underrated difference that a lot of people may not exactly understand. So we're even going to look at like the draft value trade chart and all of that type of stuff, where it's like, okay, if you have the 3rd overall pick, how many points is that worth compared to the 4th? And if you were to trade from like 3 to 8, what could you get in return as far as draft picks versus if you were to trade from 4 to 8 and stuff like that. We're also going to take a look at some history of some actual trade backs that have happened from within the top 5 to back within somewhat around the top 10 and things like that, and what teams have actually gotten in return draft wise. I'm not including like players, I'm just doing picks for picks, and that's it. But again, before we even get to all of that, we got to take a look at a lot of the different scenarios and stats, because we have different percentages for certain things. Like that 81% is if we lose out, but what if we end up winning one more game? What are our percentage of chances for getting other picks and things like that that are still within the top 10? So before we dive into all of that, super excited. Y'all know I'm draft guy, so this is like the stuff I love. I just came out with the mock draft earlier, so now we're on to this. But before we dive deep into this video, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I'm really excited about this video, about this entire off season. I've already done a video a few videos ago breaking down why Commanders fans should be super optimistic and why the Commanders future is probably, well, burgundy and gold future is probably the brightest it's been in at least like 30 years, since longer than before I was born. I did a whole video on that, and when I was talking about Josh Harris going to the GM conference and summit where it allows owners to talk to potential GM candidates, he spoke to he was able to impress like 42 of them. He was one of the most impressive owners there and made one of the strongest impressions, the most active and things like that. So go check that out. But I'm just super optimistic, and this is another reason why I am, because we have a potential top draft pick. But of course, we're going to dive into why we have to win out to accomplish that. But let's go ahead and dive into this video. I don't want to waste any more of y'all time. Let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it.
He's our quarterback for the 5-10 years, and I truly believe that.
All right, so let's start with some odds first. Of course, if the season ended today, the Commanders will have the 4th overall pick, of course. But according to ESPN Analytics, Washington is currently projected to finish with the 4th overall pick, but have a 44% chance of a top 3 pick. So we have a 44% chance of landing in that top 3 just based on everything that's going on right now. That's including the odds of us maybe winning a game, maybe not winning a game, what the Cardinals do, what the Patriots do, what all of these teams do around us, the Giants, the Bears, stuff like that. So I think that's really interesting. When you're looking at it, we have an 86% chance of at least staying in the top 5. We'll see how that goes. And we have a 0.8% chance of having the top pick in the draft, like the number 1 pick. So you're telling me there's a chance. So let's go ahead and get to that. If the Commanders lose out, this is where this comes from. We have an 81% chance at a top 3 pick in the draft. That doesn't necessarily just mean the 3rd pick. We just have an 81% chance of landing somewhere within the top 3. Again, if we lose out. Continuing with that, if we lose out, we have a 33% chance of landing a top 2 pick. And if we lose out, we have a 3% chance at the number 1 pick in the draft. Again, you're telling me there's a chance. But to break it down, if we're not including if we lose out for the remainder of the season, if we lose to the Jets, 49ers, and Cowboys, say we win one of them, maybe even just this upcoming Jets game, because the Jets are really bad as well. Aaron Rodgers probably healthy enough to play, but it isn't worth it for him to play. Zach Wilson's under concussion protocol, so I don't even exactly know who they're about to throw out there. I haven't watched the Jets enough to care enough to even know who's next in line. To be completely honest with you, I'm sorry. I've been diving straight into draft stuff since we've started to be bad, as in the Commanders, so I haven't even been paying attention to a lot of other teams like that. I've been purely focused on Commanders, what we need, and then I've already started watching tape on a lot of the college guys earlier than I typically start, but that's because this season felt over with sooner than I typically thought. But again, if the Commanders end up winning a game, if we don't, whatever, all kinds of things can happen without the stipulation included. If Washington loses out, if we just take that out, right now the Commanders have less than a 1% chance of the number 1 overall pick just based on odds. As far as getting a top 2 pick, we have a 15% chance. And as far as getting a top 3 pick, again, like I said earlier, we have a 44% chance. So again, if we lose out, literally just don't win another game this season. I don't feel like that's really hard for us, because even when we were trying to win, we couldn't win. So I'm not too stressed going into this Jets game, hoping that we retain our top draft pick. But there is a chance. But again, if we lose out for the remainder of the season, can't beat anybody else on our schedule. And again, we couldn't beat the Bears when we needed to. We couldn't beat the Giants even once this season. So there's come on, dog. How much faith does anybody have in us winning any of these games? I'm not rooting for players to look bad. I want Sam Howell to go out there and ball out. I want a lot of our young guys to go out there and ball out. I want Emmanuel Forbes to get more than 6 snaps, but I want KJ Henry to keep shining. I want Khaleke Hudson, Quan Martin, all of these guys to keep making plays and show the front office that, hey, man, we have some building blocks to build on. Maybe that will attract a better head coach because of it. I feel like we're already naturally going to get one of the top best GM candidates possible, just based on the cap space we have, the high draft picks we have, and things like that. But how some of our young players look by the time this season ends will help attract a better head coach. So that's the only thing I'm kind of worried about. But then again, with Eugene Shin, Josh Harris, and a really good GM, I'm pretty optimistic that they'll hire the right head coach anyway, but we'll see. But either way, we lose out for the remainder of the season, we have an 81% chance at a top 3 pick. All of those other percentages are accounted for if we do win another game or not. But again, I'm just afraid because the Jets do suck. But let's break this down. Shouts out to Tan Top Podcast for pointing this out. If the Commanders do win a game, I really let's just say the Jets this week, we end up beating the Jets. I really hope we don't, but we could fall as low as number 9 if a lot of the teams behind us lose. But if we win, but if we lose, my fault, I'm saying win because I'm thinking good thing. If we lose, which to me right now is a good thing, is being a draft guy that really wants a top pick to also help attract a top GM, attract the top head coach, because I don't think people are thinking about having a better draft pick only just giving us a better chance of getting better players. That also increases our chances of getting a better GM or better head coach to lead this team for the next few or more years. Hopefully we find our own version of Mike Tomlin or Bill Belichick that sticks around for forever. With the 49ers having Kyle Shanahan, Rams having Sean McVay, I'm hoping we can find something like that. But either way, if we lose and then the Bears and Patriots win, we would have the number 2 pick in the draft. That's a very realistic scenario. Now, granted, we're asking for the Cardinals to beat the Bears and the Patriots to beat the Broncos. And I don't think that sounds very unlikely. I think it's quite likely that the Jets could beat us, the Cardinals could beat the Bears, and the Patriots beat the Broncos. I think that's actually pretty possible. I mean, the Broncos don't really have as much to play for. We'll see what's going on with the Patriots. They're terrible. I mean, even we beat them, and we're struggling to beat anybody except for, you got to remember, we started out 2-0. We have 4 wins, but this wasn't sprinkled around throughout the season. We won 2 games in a row and have only won 2 games since for the remainder of the season. That's incredible. And then the Cardinals, as far as beating the Bears, that's a toss-up, honestly. That's very realistic, and that would kind of be a win-win for us, because if we lose out, we're not worried about whether the Jets win or lose anymore. If anything, I'm rooting for the Bears to start losing games now. First, I was rooting for them to win because they were ahead of us in draft picks until we just went on this crazy losing streak. But now, because we have their their second round pick, the more the Bears lose, the better it helps us. And then that's just a win-win. Cardinals beat the Bears, we can pass them in first round, and then the Bears move up also in the second round. So that's just a win-win case scenario right there. So as long as we lose out, we're good. At least a top 3 pick potentially. And then if the Cardinals win and the Patriots win while we lose out, we can end up with the number 2 pick in the draft. But again, to warn you, if we beat the Jets and then some of those teams around us lose games, we could fall as far down as the 9th pick. And boy, I'm not going to lie, my heart would be crushed. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like my heart would not be crushed, dog. Oh, my Lord. I will be heartbroken. Also, before we start to move into a lot of different scenarios and why the higher the draft pick you have does actually really matter, even the difference between going from number 4 to number 3, why that's such a big difference, we're going to take a look at that. But before we get there, the same guy that I'm getting a lot of these odds and stats from, Seth Walder, pointed out the fact that the Giants are mathematically alive for both the playoffs and the number 2 overall pick right now. Their situation is crazy. They are at a mean crossroads. Playoffs, or are we talking number 2 overall pick? They're like the only team in the NFL that has that possibility. The only reason we don't is because the Giants have beat us twice. There's no way. We're already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs no matter what else happens. Every other team in the NFC can lose every game remaining and we can win every game remaining. It's mathematically impossible for us to make the playoffs. The only reason the Giants have a slight edge on us is because of those 2 wins they have against us, and they would get the tiebreaker, which is why we can't. Because no matter what we do, if us and the Giants are tied in record, they would get the tiebreaker. So that's really crazy that they're at a mean little crossroads. Playoffs, number 2 overall pick. That's wild. That's like absolutely incredible. That's like a 20th pick or the second pick. You take that 2 and you either leave the 0 off or you add a 0 behind it, and that's the pick that the Giants can end up getting based on just these last 3 games. We're not even talking half a season. We're just talking about these last 3 games. That's crazy. Now let's dive into how having the 4th overall pick compares to having like a 3rd or a 2nd when it comes to your quarterback selection. If we are going into getting a new quarterback in this upcoming draft, which I think is very likely, again, I said this in my mock draft, I'm probably going to do an entire video breaking it all the way down with stats, comps, and things like that, comparing Sam Howell at UNC compared to a lot of these quarterbacks coming out of their respective colleges, most notably like a Drake May coming out of the same college, UNC, Caleb Williams, USC, Jaden Daniels, LSU, Michael Penix Jr., Washington, Bo Nix coming out of Oregon, Quinn Ewers, Texas. We could just go on and on and on. So I'm going to do a whole video breaking down how I exactly feel about Sam Howell. And then I took a long explanation and tried to summarize it, consolidate it a little bit in my mock draft video that I put out earlier today. But to make it even shorter, just to put it out there, I really like Sam Howell, but at the end of the day, this next regime has every right to decide what they want to do with the quarterback, whether that is Sam Howell or if that's draft the guy, plain and simple. Again, I like Sam Howell, and I think if you get him a better offensive line and all kinds of stuff, he could be the guy. But it's going to be really hard for the next regime to pass up on him. My dog Samuel Gray 2410 on YouTube commented under my mock draft, actually. Great point. He said exactly, we could go into a similar QB situation as the Texans. They tried out Davis Mills, later round draft pick, but then upgraded to CJ Stroud the very next draft, and then brought in a vet to have a quality QB room all around. And no matter what, you really can't miss, because the Texans are still out here somehow winning games even while CJ Stroud is hurt. But CJ Stroud, you could argue, was one of the players honestly carrying that team on his back. The Texans are good and they feel like a playoff team, but CJ Stroud was working magic. So getting that top tier quarterback, maybe. So you can say Sam Howell, in my opinion, is better than Davis Mills. I feel like that's a thing. I feel like we shouldn't even have those debates. But if somebody feels different, whatever. But then you can say the next CJ Stroud could be a Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels. And then you bring in a solid, cheap veteran I believe the Texans have Case Keenum working right now that won them that game against the Titans, in which the Titans really also wanted to win as well. So we could do something like that. Shouts out my boy Samuel Gray 2410 for that point, because that's really interesting. I would love a situation like that. Of course, though, just to address it, if you take quarterback in the first round, that means you're also not taking elite left tackle in the first round, or like a Brock Bowers or something like that. But we still have free agency, and we still have a lot of sleepers later in the first round if you trade back, or if you take your 2 second-round picks and trade back up into the first. We have a lot of ways to still get a great offensive line for a franchise quarterback that we take in the first round. That's all completely possible. But speaking of these top quarterbacks that could potentially be the next CJ Stroud, the difference between having the number 4 overall pick and the number 3 is simply Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams. Like, if you have the 4th overall pick, which we have right now, it's quite possible that whatever teams really, really want a quarterback, and those are not the teams ahead of us right now necessarily. The Patriots really want a quarterback right now with like I think the 2nd pick or the 3rd pick, I think they are. And then the Cardinals, I think, are the 2nd pick. They're not going quarterback, but they may be willing to trade back and allow somebody else who does want a quarterback to trade ahead of us. Bears, same thing. They're kind of 50-50. They're really, Patriots are obvious quarterback. Cardinals are obviously not quarterback. Well, mostly. Then you have the Bears, where it's kind of like a coin flip right now. They may go quarterback, they may not. It's quite likely that the Bears, with the number 1 overall pick, just get so many offers, so much great value in return, and are like, man, we'll just stick with Justin Fields at least 1 more year, and we'll take all of this draft capital to move back from number 1 to somewhere else in the top 10, get so many first-round picks in return, and then get so many great players to put around Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields doesn't work, then you draft a quarterback the next round, and you have all of these elite talents around that quarterback ready to go. So I'm just basically saying that even though 2 of the teams in front of us right now don't necessarily need a quarterback, even though we have the 4th overall pick, it's quite likely the teams will be willing to trade up in front of us to get those guys. Caleb Williams is considered a generational player. Drake May was like the 1B to Caleb Williams 1A before the season started. And Jaden Daniels was literally the best quarterback in college football this past season. I don't care what you say. And then on top of that, he did it against the best competition between those top 3 quarterbacks. I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels is definitely going to be better than Caleb Williams and Drake May, but based on what I saw in 2023, he looked like the better quarterback. We'll see what happens. Then you also have Michael Penix Jr., all of that type of stuff. But if we're talking about the number 4 overall pick, quite likely, whether teams trade up ahead of us, whatever, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels go in the top 3. Maybe specifically in that order, maybe not, but it's quite likely those are the first 3 players drafted in the 2024 draft, which leaves us with the 4th overall pick out of range of getting those guys. Michael Penix Jr. seems like he's going to potentially be a great quarterback. Bo Nix has some potential. Quinn Ewers. It's a lot of guys there, but I feel like it's like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels in like their own tier. Then there's like a gap, and then it's Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and all of those guys. And I like Michael Penix Jr., but I do feel like there is a gap there. So you kind of fall into you're going from first tier quarterback to second tier quarterback, literally just from being the number 4 overall pick rather than the 3rd. That's a huge difference right there. But on top of all of that, also, if you're thinking about trades, like thinking about trading back, say we do decide we want Sam Howell to be our franchise quarterback, we decide to use this draft to completely build the offense around him, get some playmaking, not only offensive players, but defensive players, and we just go heavy into get as much draft capital, trade back, do what you got to do, and try to get as great of a team as possible around Sam Howell. And again, with the same logic as Justin Fields, you have another year. We built this great team around you. We put elite players around you. If you don't work out, then the next quarterback that we take in the 2025 draft will have this great team around them ready to go. So no excuses, Sam Howell or Justin Fields in that scenario. But if we do that, it's quite likely that we would trade back. You don't have a number 4, number 3 overall pick and don't take quarterback. Usually it's going to be very hard. First of all, Eugene Shen has already said, and again, I'm going to keep saying it, I think he's going to have a lot more power than a lot of people think. He's already said 2 later picks are better than 1 earlier one. So he already has this mentality of trading back. He trusts his ability to draft and develop well. So he's like, I'll take 2 later round picks rather than 1 first, because I feel like I can make those 2 later round picks be just as good each as that 1 earlier pick. So now we have 2 elite great players rather than just 1. That's basically his logic. He's very confident in his ability to evaluate and develop talent and all of that type of stuff. And I'm hoping that that's a nice mentality to have. But I mean, I'm sorry, passing up, even if you're not taking tackle, a quarterback, Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt, Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting there dangling in front of your face and you're willing to trade back. I don't know about that, but say we do. I went on a tangent, but just say we are likely to trade back. Because again, Eugene Shin loves to trade back. They'll probably hire a GM that also likes to trade back. If we're talking about trading back wise, if we're looking at the model that you see right here in front of your screen, here are the point values assigned to draft picks. And this isn't like a perfect formula or anything. It's just a nice reference. And apparently NFL teams actually reference maybe not specifically this model, but a model that's very close to this. So this is basically generally how NFL teams view the value of draft picks. And so just based on this chart right here, say for example, we move back from 4 to 8, we could get back a 2nd round pick as a net positive. So now instead of losing again, like winning a game like against the Jets, and then you move down to the 9th pick rather than losing out, instead of having that 9th pick, you could potentially have the 8th pick and an additional 2nd round pick from another team, just simply because you ended up with the 4th pick overall. And you're still picking 1 pick ahead. And that's the difference where, again, you lose out and you end up, say, worst case scenario, you lose out and end up with the 4th overall pick. Then from there, if you want to trade back to 8, you have an additional 2nd round pick compared to if you beat the Jets, and now you just have the 9th overall pick without that additional 2nd round pick, and you're still 1 pick behind that 8th one. That's the big difference. I hope I worded that well for y'all. Let's also say, which I doubt we do, but we move back from, say, like 4th overall pick to 15th, or we could compare it to 8th to 15th. Value wise, we could net another 1st round pick from moving back from 4 to 15. And realistically get more than that as well if we really wanted to. But 8 to 15 instead of getting a 1st round pick and possibly more, you would net a late 2nd round pick, which is a huge difference. At the same time, no matter what, through both of those scenarios, we're picking 15th overall. But because of where we were before the draft started, before we did a trade, it's the difference between a 1st round pick or a late 2nd round pick that we get in return for trading back to the 15th pick. That's a huge difference. Literally the difference between being pick 4 or pick 8, moving back to 15th in both scenarios. Let's also say we end up with the 2nd overall pick, which would be so fun, but prefer to go tackle instead of quarterback. So let's say we have the 2nd overall pick and we want to move back to 7. Let's compare that to where we currently are right now, 4th overall, and moving back to 7. We're going back from where we are now, just 3 spots, 4 to 7. Actually, very likely to happen. We would net a late 2nd round pick. But going from 2 to 7, if we lose out and the Cardinals and Patriots at least win 1 or 2 more games, we end up with the 2nd overall pick, moving back to that same 7th overall pick instead of from the 4th position, from the 2nd position, move back to 7. We can net a top 14 draft pick in the 1st round, not just the 1st round pick. Instead of a late 2nd round, not only is it a 1st round pick, it's a top 14 draft pick. Again, according to the values from that model, the points that they assign to each of those draft picks and what they're worth and all of that type of stuff. So it's crazy. But let's even ignore the models. Instead of using these models, stats, and charts and stuff like that, let's just look at a history of trade backs. In last year's draft, the Cardinals did a trade with the Houston Texans where they were originally number 3, moved from 3 to 12, and then they also had to give up a 4th round pick as well, moved from 3 to 12, giving up a 4th round pick, and in return, they only moved back 9 spots. We're still able to get some, they ended up trading the pick away to Detroit. It ended up becoming Jahmyr Gibbs. But either way, giving away the number 3 overall pick and a 4th rounder, they got back the 12th overall pick in the 1st round, a 2nd rounder, a 1st rounder in 2024, and a 3rd rounder in 2024. That's crazy in itself. That's immense value right there. We could put together 2 potentially great draft classes in a row with that type of trade back. Again, we're sitting there and like Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt, Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr., any combination of those guys are sitting there. It's going to be really hard for me to trade back, but say we do. Okay, let's say we have the 3rd overall pick. Remember the Dolphins and the 49ers back in 2021? The Dolphins, with the 3rd overall pick, moved from 3 to 12, moved back 9 spots, and in return, not only got that 12th overall pick, but also got a 2022 first rounder, a 2022 3rd rounder, and a 2023 first rounder. Like, come on, dog. Come on, man. This is crazy. The Dolphins moved up to number 6. Shouts out to the Eagles, man. They moved from 6 to 12. They had to give up a 5th round pick to do it, but in return, they got that 12th overall pick, a 4th round pick, and the next year's 1st round pick in 2022. Like, golly, man. So trading back, if we want to explore that, man, it gets really serious if you think about trading back and you have a better draft pick than where we currently stand. I mean, moving back from 4 is great, but there's a difference between trading back from number 4 than trading back from number 3 or number 2. It's a big difference. I mean, let's even go back to 2014. Let's talk about this exact draft pick that we currently have right now. 4th overall. The Browns traded the 4th overall pick to the Bills and only moved back 5 spots to 9th, and also got a 1st and a 4th round pick in the following draft in return. That's crazy, dog. I'm telling you, that trade back thing may be a serious thing, but my main point is that there's a big difference trading back from 4, or definitely trading back all the way back 9 to somewhere further back, than having the 4th, 3rd, or 2nd overall pick and then trading back from there, if that's what we want to do. But of course, also having a higher draft pick, the obvious thing is that you have an easier choice of selecting. You have a better chance of getting the elite talents. Having the 9th overall pick is quite likely all of the quarterbacks we really want are gone. Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt are gone. Brock Bowers is probably gone, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is more than likely gone. So now, outside of those top tier players at their respective positions, there's still a lot of great players left, but you're missing out on those guys. That's the difference between having the 4th overall pick and the 9th. Again, let's go Jets this upcoming weekend. I'm not even going to sit here and fake it, man. But that's the end of this video. Make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I appreciate y'all for pulling up to this video. Please leave a like on the way out. Leave a comment, even if it's like a 1 letter, a fire emoji, whatever. Just leave a comment on the way out. Y'all don't understand how much it means for my channel. Even if you can't donate through YouTube, through CashApp, or through PayPal, all of the information is in the link in the description of this video, every live stream, all of that. At least leave a like on the way out, because that's big time for me. Y'all really don't understand. It's free for all, and it means the world to me. But of course, again, like I keep saying, I'm busy, so I'm trying my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. And I'm very happy I looked at comments before I started recording, because my dog Samuel Gray 2410 brought up a great point with that Texan situation with CJ Stroud, Case Keenum, and Davis Mills. God, I don't know why I keep saying Dax Mill. So yeah, man, again, I'm trying. Please leave a comment in the section and let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Of course, like I keep saying, man, and I mean it, even if you disagree with me, let me know why, because I could be wrong and you could enlighten me on why I'm wrong. I really appreciate any and all feedback, positive or negative. I really do. So please let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with any of my points, and also let me know, are you just like me, rooting for us to lose out for a higher draft pick, or are you one of the people that actually does want to go out swinging and win a couple of games, game or two or whatever, to end the season? Let me know how you feel about that, of course. And without further ado, man, I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Become a channel member if you haven't yet. I'm out.